Let me ask you this. Here's my question of the day. Because you see people like Steve Kerr out there saying, do something, right? That's the do something. Do you think you make your best decisions when you're angry and emotional in the heat of the moment? Is this the right time to start removing people's fundamental rights or changing the very fabric of our Constitution? I assume that everyone who's talking about this, outside of the politicians, and even then probably a good portion of them, cares and wants what's better for this country, wants to limit violence. I don't want to get to just gun violence. I don't want to get to just mass shootings because that's a very small subset of violence. And certainly a very small subset of violence as it relates to human nature throughout history. I think that most people want to cut down on violence. I think that most of you, whether you're left or right, want to cut down on our kids being killed. Okay, so let's start from that. We're going to get to the top 5 myths, the claims that are being made right now in the wake of the tragedy that had just taken place in Texas and has taken the life of, at the time of this filming, 19, if I'm not mistaken, is it 19 people now? Mm-hmm. Or is it 19 children and then plus 2 teachers? It depends.
I believe it's 19 plus 2.
How do you know that there's political grandstanding going on? Like I said, I believe that you care, we care, not necessarily all of the politicians. They see this as an opportunity, unfortunately. And then that'll bring us to Steve Kerr because he doesn't understand how a constitutional republic works. But here is Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy saying something and very clearly not meaning it. How do I know? Because he says he's going to literally do something and then doesn't do it.
But I'm here on this floor to beg, to literally get down on my hands and knees and beg my colleagues.
Turns out he only was on his knees in the green room.
Yes.
You saw it kind of like he was gonna go.
He was gonna go, and he's like, I don't want people to have that picture of me.
Yeah.
That's going to be Photoshop City. So then he just stayed standing.
Yeah, it's how do you have to beg? Usually you don't even have to ask.
Yeah. Usually you just have to say yes. I am literally on my hands and knees to beg. And he went on saying, we can find some kind of common ground. This is what they always, okay, common ground. All right. Like what? Background checks. It's already a thing.
Yeah.
Hey, wait, hold on a second. We find common ground. You say necessary medical care is chopping off the penises of boys. Where's the common ground at that point? We are so far beyond common ground. We need to course correct. When people say, oh, we've divided more. No. Democrats have gone left and Republicans have gone left. And then maybe some less left. But we need to course correct and understand in our country what the Constitution means, and if it means anything at all. Because you do have one party in this country that wishes we were like all of the other countries, and we'll get to that in a second, that don't have the Constitution we have. It is a different country by design, for a reason. So he says that. That's how you know it's grandstanding. He says, I'm going to get on my hands and knees. Do it.
Go ahead.
I wasn't actually going to get on my hands and my knees, but you said you were literally were. I meant figuratively, but you said literally. I meant literally figuratively. You're a dick.
Yep. Well, it's like you said, it's just grandstanding. How long are we going to be held captive to our politicians?
Right.
How long until we actually change something and do something?
Voluntarily captive. We are imprisoning ourselves right now.
We're listening to the stupidest people ever, and they're running our country.
Yeah, it is pretty apparent when you watch
money.
AOC. You're like, this is a really dumb person.
Yeah, please tell us your thoughts on gun control, you moron.
Yes. And now let's go to the Golden State Warrior coach, Steve Kerr. Everyone's talking about this. It's gone viral and because it's impassioned. Great. But passion in the absence of information or education is of no value. Yeah. So let's watch.
When are we going to do something? I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. I'm so tired of I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough. There's 50 senators right now who refuse to vote on H.R. 8, which is a background check rule that the House passed a couple of years ago. It's been sitting there for 2 years.
Background checks are already a thing.
And there's a reason they won't vote on it, to hold on to power.
How does that work?
I ask you, Mitch McConnell, I ask all of you senators who refuse to do anything about the violence and school shootings and supermarket shootings, I ask you, are you going to put your own desire for power ahead of the lives of our children and our elderly and our churchgoers? Because that's what it looks like.
Your own desire for power. Okay, let's examine that a little bit here. This is also the same person where you have a lot of people made this argument. 90% of Americans support background checks. Well, of course, so do I. They already exist. You say giving up your own power. Yeah, I want to get more of a grip on. I want more power, so you should all own guns, said no dictator ever, just to be clear. And hey, if you're talking about power, it's a constitutional republic. It's a representative republic. The only way they would maintain power is people voting for them. The easiest way to get a grip on power is be like a Joe Biden who's never held the same view twice. These are facts that you need to start with, and then we can get into some specific claims. Let me give you, for those who don't know, I mean, I'm sure you've seen this ad nauseum, but what we know at this point, shooter, 18-year-old Hispanic male, 22, is it 22 victims right now?
22 now.
It was 21 when I wrote it here this morning, so 22 victims. He had a rifle and a handgun. He was wearing some kind of, not a Kevlar vest, but some kind of body armor plate carrier. Opened fire, of course, at Robb Elementary School, Uvalde, Texas. And it is important to note that he was stopped by one single Border Patrol agent who'd been working nearby. This is from ABC News. When shooting began, he, meaning the Border Patrol agent, rushed into school without waiting for backup and shot and killed the gunman. Hey, here's another thing.
Hero.
Yeah, absolutely a hero.
But on his own. He was actually, I think, wounded in the process and was able to get out of the building.
Here's another question. How has every single mass shooting that was stopped, meaning one that didn't just continue until the perpetrator got away or tired, how is every single one of them? What's a 100%, maybe let's call it 99 constant? Stopped by what? What? Guy with a gun. So when you say a good guy with a gun, that old West cowboy myth, well, hold on a second. What about, the police? Okay. What did the police show up with? Sticky hands, praying mantis style? No, the guy showed up with a gun. Now, let me just back that up a little bit, because there are solutions being offered on both sides. And of course, the left, claiming that they want to find common ground, is dismissing those on the right. That's just crazy. That's asinine. Okay, so you know that all of these mass shootings, right? All these people, all these criminals, these homicidal maniacs, when they commit these crimes, the only way to stop them is by someone who has equal or greater force, someone else with a gun. You call on them, the police. But you've heard an ounce of prevention is worth 1,000 pounds of defense or cure, depending on which, in sports we'll say an ounce of prevention is worth 10,000 tons of defense in wrestling. Look, you're saying after the fact, call the guy with a gun. When we say, hey, instead of after the fact, how about having someone with a gun there beforehand? What? Can you believe that Republicans are suggesting that there should be armed police or that teachers should be allowed to? You're calling a guy with a gun after the fact. That's your only solution. Here is, and this comes straight from the former Vice President Horse's mouth, gave a speech yesterday, and he immediately pivoted to gun control, which has eluded him his career. So the first claim that they're making is that this shooting is the fault of the gun lobby.
So many crushed spirits. So tonight, I ask the nation to pray for them.
Oh, eat shit.
Give the parents and siblings the strength in the darkness they feel right now.
Pardon my language, sir.
As a nation, we have to ask, when in God's name are we going to stand up to the gun lobby? When in God's name we do what we all know in our gut needs to be done?
No, you know in your gut that the most important thing for a child is to affirm the gender they want to be. He gave that speech. So let's be really clear here. That's the claim. Here's the truth, okay? First off, no one from the gun lobby killed anyone yesterday. Okay, let's be clear. Let's also hold the person who pulled the trigger accountable. And the gun lobby is far less influential than people want to make them out to be. Less influential than unions, for example. Less influential than telecom companies. But certainly, some companies I think are of note. In 2021, gun rights lobbyists spent a total of $15.8 million. Okay, compare that to pharmaceuticals. $356 million. Electronics, $179 million. Insurance, $153 million. What? It's not even close. $15.8 million to $356 million from pharmaceutical companies. Hey, but by the way, have pharmaceutical companies killed any kids?
I don't know. The reports are redacted, and they need 50 years to let us know.
Yeah, it's buried somewhere in those 80,000 pages.
It takes
One
time.
day we'll know.
By the way,
we won't know. We'll be dead by the time it comes out. But
Probably because
our
we
kids might
took
know.
all the... Here's the second claim that is really common right now, and you're hearing this everywhere. Okay? And you're hearing it from from former Vice President Biden. Donald Trump was far more accurate when these events happened. By the way, what happened to Trump's America every time there was a shooting? Is it Biden's America? I just want to make sure that I understand, because we have far more crime overall, which is what I'm more concerned with, violent crime, not just the tool.
And the whole war thing.
Yeah, the whole war thing, the whole $40 billion to Ukraine. But okay, so the claim is we're the only country, and you hear this a lot, we're the only country where this kind of thing happens.
I just got off a trip from Asia, meeting with Asian leaders.
Thank you for.
And I learned of this while I was on the aircraft.
Oh, good.
And what struck me
Surprised he didn't say Oriental.
on that 17-hour flight, what struck me was these kinds of mass shootings rarely happen anywhere else in the world.
Wrong.
Why? They have mental health problems. They have domestic disputes in other countries. They have people who are lost. But these kinds of mass shootings never happen with the kind of frequency they happen in America. Why?
Okay, so first off, there's a sleight of hand that's taking place there, and I want to sort of go through a couple of points. But here's the truth, okay? We are not the country, first off, with the most violent crime or the most amount of murders or homicides. It's not even close when you look at it per capita. So if you look at from 2018, you have El Salvador, you have Jamaica, you have Honduras. Where does America land on the list? We're like 83rd. Okay, less than 5 homicides per 100,000. Compare that to number 1, El Salvador, 52.
So he was only 83 off.
Yes. Well, this is important. I'm going through the violent crime rate and the homicide rate. Now, the left wants it both ways, where they say, well, you can't compare us to El Salvador or Honduras. Why not? Well, because those countries are shitholes? Do you mean to say they're third world, so it's not fair to compare it? Well, good thing is we have another statistic here. We're not even the country with the most mass shootings per capita, even among the first world countries, which I guess is the term that we would have to use now. If you look at the death rates per million from 2009 to 2015, you have Norway, you have Serbia, you have Macedonia. The United States is 11th. But here's the thing. Let's even assume that there is an outlier trend of mass shootings in the United States. Okay? It's not. References available at louderwithcrowder.com. I'm still more concerned with the violent crime rate and the homicide rate. And it's not even close. So this is why they want to focus on the tool. And this is why you get a lot of people who they'll accuse you of being conspiratorial because you see rising violent crime. Right now, why is there rising violent crime? Like Dave just pointed out earlier, because they encourage the rioting. You had Kamala Harris saying, don't stop the rioting. And so what does that necessitate? Well, there's an increase in firearm purchases. Yeah. So there's a rise in crime through liberal rhetoric, through leftist policy. And they say, look at the rise in crime. We need to what? Remove more of your rights. Here's another claim right now, the third claim that you're going to hear a lot. You're going to see it on Twitter. You're going to see it everywhere. And you heard the president reiterate this, the former vice president. I apologize. Admonish me. Admonish me.
Please.
I need to respect the office. I need to respect the office. Former vice president. So the claim is that their common sense gun control would have somehow prevented or had any effect on this shooting.
I am sick and tired of it. We have to act. And don't tell me we can't have an impact on this carnage. I spent my career as a senator and a vice president.
Your life.
Working to pass common sense gun laws. We can and won't prevent every tragedy, but we know they work and have positive impact.
No, that's wrong. Now, something that you see a lot on Twitter everywhere that they tie to this is universal background checks. You just heard that from Steve Kerr. We need background checks. Background checks are already a thing.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
I had a background check for several days.
Yeah. If you want to debunk the myth of the idea that there are no background checks, look, just go buy a firearm with any family member or friend. And then you can just say, I don't want to buy it. Just have them get to the paperwork phase. Right away they go, I'm being lied to. That's why you increase firearm ownership in this country. And guess what? It becomes really, really hard for politicians to lie. They say, no background checks. And everyone at home is going, that's bullshit. I just did a background check. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's that much of a disconnect from reality. Texas already requires background checks. Customers, let me read it exactly. Customers at licensed dealers, it's the truth, I should have said. Yeah. Licensed gun dealers in the state of Texas are required to pass an FBI background check. And by the way, the shooter purchased his firearm that way through a background check. Some shooters don't. A lot of them do. Pass a background check anyway, just to be clear. Yeah. It already exists. So when someone says, we need to do something, we have a bill that just demands background checks. You go, hold on a second, we already have background checks. What else is in that bill?
Yeah.
That's the follow-up question. But you can only ask it if you have a baseline of knowledge. They don't want you to have that.
No. And do me a favor and show me what shooting would have been stopped by a background check. I mean, maybe there's a handful, maybe there's a couple, but you're saying there's been 200 plus mass shootings this year so far. How many of those are stopped by your end-all be-all solution?
And that's, by the way, that's assuming this is predicated on the idea that the criminals who are willing to commit mass murder would obey the laws of a background check. So even assuming that, the numbers still don't hold up. And by the way, this was such a pervasive myth that after we did a Change My Mind on a campus, I took 2 girls to a firing range and then went through the process to purchase a firearm with them because these girls were anti-gun and they had never actually learned anything about firearms. And they were shocked to find out they had to fill out paperwork and pass a background check. We did this as an entire 30-minute video.
How about we just go through the background check?
Okay, let's go through. Okay, so let's do it. As though you're going to get that.
Yeah.
But let's do the background check. Pretty thorough questionnaire there, huh?
Yeah.
Did that surprise you?
Yeah, I didn't think there was all that.
Yeah. And he's putting it through the database right now, so the FBI will let us know if you've lied about any of those questions. They lied about all of them. Here's another claim that is very common that you've heard before. It's sort of, you can predict this, which claims are going to be recycled because they don't work, and then they rehash another one. And this is that, like you mentioned, ghost guns, non-existent terms, that assault weapons, which means nothing, are to blame.
When we passed the assault weapons ban, mass shootings went down.
Nope.
Wrong. When the law expired, mass shootings tripled.
Nope.
The idea that an 18-year-old kid can walk into a gun store and buy 2 assault weapons is just wrong.
You mean rifles?
What in God's name do you need an assault weapon for except to kill someone?
Hey, okay, good. Look, first off, show me where the tripling comes from. Second, what's an assault weapon?
Any weapon, if you want to use it for assault, I suppose.
I would suppose, but for him, it's well, no, it's if it has a grip like this. But it's okay. But if it has
Matte finish.
Matte finish.
Oh man, that's so dangerous.
I know. Yeah, it's in your rapist defense kit, but that has a matte finish. We only allow the blued finish.
Yeah. Meanwhile, when he was a kid, he could walk in any store and get liquor, 8 guns that he wanted.
Yeah.
8 packs of cigarettes.
And then he just shot his gun on his front porch into the air.
Yes, go out with your shotgun and shoot it up in the air.
Any minority he wanted.
Yeah. Well, he didn't want any of them in his town.
No.
Back then. I was a tough kid from Scranton.
Yeah.
No.
Here's me saying the N-word a whole bunch. Nobody holds me accountable.
Right. So right there he makes a claim about the assault weapons ban. Okay. Not true. Gun violence was already on a downward trajectory before the ban in 1994. And then when it was rescinded in the early 2000s, it continued to fall. It was 2004.
Yeah, and it was very steady. Actually, if you look really closely at the data, Barack Obama was pushing that, we used to have this ban on assault weapons and it was fantastic. It lowered all the gun crime. No, it actually went up during that specific period of time after the ban was in place. Yeah. And it has settled out since.
And that's why they try to hide behind terms like mass shooting specifically as opposed to homicide or gun crime, because the term isn't necessarily defined consistently. Some places define it as 4 deaths or more. That used to be what was used.
Right.
Back when I used to talk about this in 2015, now some of them say 3 people injured or more. But then they would be covering all of the gang crime that takes place every single weekend. Those would be mass shootings. So it really depends on what's most convenient. What you need to look for, what is a constant, is violent crime, homicide, and then if you want to look at gun crime because you believe that you would stop all the rest of homicides and violent crime without a gun. But if you want to say not only violent crime, not only homicide, not only gun crime, but specifically mass shootings, which are such a small subset of the problem, then just admit that you don't want to solve the problem. You are losing the argument, so you're trying to score some political points. Now, let's go to another claim that's going to take a little bit of time here. This is another claim. This is the 5th claim. And this is one that's being recycled, but they try and reframe it. And the idea here is, and you can see this all over Twitter, that the Second Amendment doesn't protect assault weapons, which, by the way, is an undefinable term. Right. It's fluid, like that penis between your legs.
If it looks scary, that's what they pretty much mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. What they try and often argue, and then I want to get to what the actual Second Amendment means, but they say, you know what? If the Second Amendment, if they knew that people would have these high-capacity guns and be going, they would have not allowed what they... Okay, first off, on a pragmatic level, that's not true. There are plenty of guns that weren't just muskets. There was a Girandoni air rifle. There was a pepperbox revolver. There was a puckle gun. There was the belt and flintlock. These were things that existed. The reason they just weren't in large circulations because they were too expensive. Our founding fathers were aware of that. Not only were they aware of that, but they were also aware of and gave their stamp of approval on cannons.
Artillery was approved.
Artillery was approved.
It's
like a subprime loan.
What? We want cannons? Why, yes.
No trouble.
Unbelievable.
So James Madison, that's right. This is Overlay N. He wrote a letter of marque explaining this is Overlay N there, Kevin. I know Tokunawa's not here, so Overlay N. I'm not going in order. They were asking, it was a private ship that said, we have to deal with trouble on the high seas.
Yeah.
We just want to know, that's that whole Second Amendment that you did? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Does it apply to cannons? And Madison was like, yeah, it applies to cannons. Why do you think we wrote it?
Why not?
So what's the equivalent to a cannon today? It's at least a rocket launcher. This is a very lazy argument. They want you to believe that it was just about muskets. That's not true. There were other firearms, and there was artillery, and it was expressly approved by the people who wrote the Second Amendment. It's a lazy argument. References available at louderwithcrowder.com. Now, they also try and say, well, the Second Amendment, here's the problem, because they want to do away with the Second Amendment. And so they say, well, the Second Amendment is just for the militia, right? What part? You're not in the militia. This is an argument that they use. Again, it's a really lazy argument. Yeah. Let me read you the Second Amendment for people who haven't read it. It's a short read. I recommend it. It says, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So it doesn't say the right of the militia to keep and bear arms. It says a well-regulated militia, meaning the country needs a militia. Then there are two commas between that and then the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Why is it written that way? It's very clear. Well, let's look to the supporting documents. George Mason once said, I ask, sir, what is the militia? It is the whole people, except for a few public officials, which I love that he decided to highlight that. So what is a militia? The militia is you. And that doesn't mean that you have to join a militia in the woods. What it means is you have a country, very, very different from other countries, too. That's why I like to compare within states, because we shouldn't compare us to Canada.
No.
Why? Because they suck. Also, they bent over for the royalty. They still have the queen on their money.
Yeah.
We fought a bloody war for our freedom. Some other historical context, just so you know. If George Washington was the kind of shitty politician like Senator Murphy, right, who just wanted to, I don't know, as Steve Kerr might say, maintain his grip of power. Keep in mind, George Washington is one of the only few people throughout history who was one of, if not the most powerful man in the New World, in the whole world, but certainly the New World. People were begging for him to stay, and he left. And he said, because I'm not immune to power corrupting. That's a big deal. Not many people do that. He also fought other militias. A lot of people don't realize this. You think there's the War of Independence and then you think there's a Civil War. No, there were wars being fought here in the United States because there were some people who, I know as crazy as this may sound, wanted to be loyal to the crown.
Yeah.
There were all kinds of factions. George Washington had to fight them. The easiest thing he could have done would have been strip them of the right to own firearms. Oh my gosh, I'm running into these militias who disagree with us. But he understood it was so important that he still affirmed it. Repeatedly, because he understood that is what was necessary to keep the kind of government that they just fled in check, and he also recognized that he could be that kind of a government. That he could be that kind of, and at that point, really, government. We didn't have exactly what we have right now. This man was powerful. This man could have been a king, and he recognized, ooh, that's bad. One of the fail-safes here is the people to have guns. They need to be their own militia.
Yeah, this is the only way you secure freedom. What is it saying there? Being necessary to secure, or for the security of a free state?
Yep.
Right? Free security. See those things tied together? The only way free stays is if you have security. And the only way you get security is if you have the right to keep and bear arms.
Yeah.
It's very, very clear. Look at countries throughout history. We don't have to go to Germany. We can go to Australia. Last year, they're building camps. They did mandatory buybacks of firearms forever, right? How do you defend yourself against a tyrannical government? How do you defend yourself against a tyrannical individual in your community if you have no right to keep and bear arms? But that person can go out and get whatever they want. Right? They're not going to obey the laws anyway. And if you're like, if the entire United States just had the law, fine, fantastic. How close was this to the border? How many guns are coming over that border illegally right now? You telling me you couldn't get one if you really wanted one? The argument doesn't really hold up.
These are the same people who require you to get a negative COVID test or quarantine if you're coming back into your own country for, I think it's 10 days, but you have hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants who just right on through, sir.
Yes, right here. Please go this way.
Well,
make sure you come back for your court date in 7 years.
I like your gun.
Yes.
I like the cut of that AR-15.
I like the ivory grips and the god-awful gaudy flames etched into it.
I like the blood on the machete.
Yes.
You must be, what do they call it? Cartel? Am I pronouncing that right? I don't want to offend.
Yes.
Have you seen our wonderful EVT cards? We have a fantastic selection.
Yeah.
Yes, please take one. Take two.
Yes.
We don't care.
We've been playing around with screen prints. Look, this EBT card has Dora the Explorer. Are you familiar? Probably not, but you know what? Take that. That's for you.
Yeah. So let's just let's just tie a bow on this. So Second Amendment makes sure that the other rights exist.
Yeah,
right?
scale back even, Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
Scale back that they need guns. We're literally let's put a finer point on this. Your money, billions, 40 billion was just the last round. I can't even keep a tally of the total amount of billions that have gone to Ukraine. Billions of your dollars are right now going to paying for guns for people in the Ukraine so they can be a well-regulated militia, which you were insured as your own right at the founding of this country, and they want to strip from you. Your money is going to Ukraine to pay for their guns. Well, they want to take yours.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.